It feels a very intimate audience here, which is nice. Please don't let me do all the talking. Please stop and ask me questions as we go, because I've only got 15 slides anyway, and we won't be here for the whole hour. So please do stop and ask questions, share your thoughts, share your experiences as we go. I'd really appreciate it. So my name's Jonathan Beebe, and I'm a nurse consultant, and I run with Anna at the back a company called PBS4. We provide supported living for people with learning disabilities and challenging behaviour. I can't say we're brand new anymore. We've been going for 2.5 years now, but we've started it from scratch. It's a non-profit social enterprise, so we haven't got big investors behind us. Everything we're doing on a shoestring. It started off in my bedroom with me with an idea. We've had some great support from the School for Social Enterprise, who helped me to figure out how to run a business. I kind of knew how to support people with learning disabilities, but didn't really know how to run a business, so they helped with that side of things. And we're tiny in the social care world. We're supporting nearly 20 people now that we're supporting. So compared to other providers, we're small. But for a new organisation, that means we're employing over 120 staff. So it's whilst we're small, it's also quite large, and it's filled with challenges and fun and trials and tribulations, which is good. And the aim of what we're trying to do is to deliver person-centred positive behaviour support. The PBS4 in our name, it's a bit like Toys R Us. We're aiming to use the name as a prefix, so if we was providing support team for Anna, it would be PBS for Anna, and that would be to encourage the team that they're there to provide positive support for Anna. So that's what we're trying to do, and each service we design is designed specifically around that person, and we're trying to get really person-centred with high quality positive behaviour support that underpins it. So that's a bit of a background about who I am and where I'm from. And the talk today is, can medication be an effective part of a positive behaviour support plan? Medication's getting a lot of attention at the moment. I'm sure most of you in here will be aware of the STOMP initiative that's happening at the moment, so stop over medicating people with learning disabilities. And I fully support that. We've signed up to the STOMP pledge as PBS4. We don't think it's right that people with learning disability are over medicated. But at the same time as that, we've seen people in crisis, and we've seen when medication is essential and it's been needed. I think similar to what's happened post-Winterbourne View. Post-Winterbourne View, it was all hospitals are bad, hospitals are evil places, we need to close all hospitals. And there's a risk that the same thing's going to happen with medication. People say, well, all medication's bad, isn't it? We shouldn't give medication to people with learning disabilities. So, as a warning, my take on it is that I don't think that all medications are a bad thing, and I feel a little bit controversial saying that. I feel like I'm putting my head above the parapet, ready to be shot. But I've worked with families where they've been in complete crisis, and they've just needed something to help them get through it. I've worked with families where they've been in complete crisis and the person's needed a hospital admission, and whilst all these things are being taken away, what's being put in place to replace them? What effective alternative solutions are there for families right there? So it's about getting that balance right, and I think we need some balance in the world. That's 2 of 15 slides, so join in a bit, because otherwise I'll be done. So what medications are we talking about? We're talking about antipsychotics mainly. Antipsychotics get prescribed a lot for people with learning disability, where there is challenging behaviour. The big criticism of the STOMP initiative is the people that are getting these medications don't have a mental health diagnosis, so we're giving them antipsychotics when they don't have psychosis. They're not being used for what they're licensed for in the BNF. What they're being used for, risperidone is probably one of the most common examples that we'll see in learning disability practice. And you see it's a low dose of risperidone, thinking of the therapeutic doses that are used in psychosis, but a low dose is used in order to give a mild sedative effect. It sedates the person, in effect. It helps calm them down and be at a level of arousal that they can function properly throughout the day. So that's the main aim of it. Beta blockers are also sometimes used for the same reason. Also, some of the anti-epileptic medications, sodium valproate is a common one that's used because it has a mood stabilisation effect. We've got the opiate-based medications, your diazepams, lorazepams and things like that. They get used for a sedative effect. And it could be any of the medications used to reduce or manage challenging behaviour in people with learning disabilities. They're generally referred to as psychotropic medication. They tend to get grouped into a class of psychotropic medications. Is anyone? I'm going to try and involve you.
So c'est ça, antipsychotic as for like a mood regulator?
Yes, yeah, mood regulation is one that gets used for, yeah.
So they're not just for people who have psychosis?
No, so that's the controversy, I suppose, that the STOMP programme's looking at, is people are given antipsychotics, they don't have a mental health diagnosis, they don't have a psychosis diagnosis. Yeah. It's not uncommon, we can look at people's MAR sheets and say, crikey, they're on sodium valproate and they don't have epilepsy, why are they taking that? Or yeah, they're taking haloperidol and they've never had a diagnosis of a mental illness. And it's used because it has that mild sedative effect. It sedates them. Historically, we know people in long-stay institutions would have been what they would call a chemical kosh. They would have been drugged up to the hilt, they would have been walking around in a zombified form, experiencing lots of very, very negative side effects. Drooling, tardive dyskinesia, all sorts of very, very severe side effects. So how do we get to a situation where a person gets prescribed antipsychotics? Usually it's because there is a crisis situation, that the family or their direct supports are in a situation where they're going, we just can't cope right now, we can't take any more of what's happening. The family or the support have tried everything and they're at their wit's end. So they go to the doctor or a psychiatrist and they want a quick fix. So they're there pleading with the psychiatrist saying, we can't take any more, please just give him something to calm him down. And they're hoping for that magic pill that's going to just make all the problems go away.
I think it's often when people are on waiting lists for other services as well.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
If you nudge someone, of course the behaviour is going to stop. If we make you sleep,
yeah,
we're going to...
Yeah. A common statement I use in other presentations I give, if our only goal is to stop the challenging behaviour, then the solution is to shoot them. Because people are challenging when they're dead. That isn't our only goal. Our only goal is not to stop the challenging behaviour. We want to improve the person's quality of life. We want to meet the function of what that behaviour is serving. We don't want to just stop the behaviour. But at that moment in time when families are at crisis and their houses are getting trashed or they're covered in bruises and broken bones, they just want to stop that behaviour. They want a little bit of respite. They want a window of opportunity where they can recover and start to rebuild things. So medication is perceived as a solution and no further interventions explored. Unfortunately, what should happen is the medication gets prescribed and then we go, right, now let's look at getting systems and processes in place, let's build up the family's resilience, let's look at getting interventions in place to meet the function of the behaviour, let's look at what we can do to stop this challenging behaviour happening again in the future, and then we can look at reducing the medication. Commonly what happens is the medication gets given, the challenging behaviour stops, and they go, there we go, that's our solution then, isn't it? The medication has solved our problems, we don't need to do anything else now, and the person just stays on the medication forever. And that is a problem with medication. It needs to be reviewed, it needs to be seen as not the long-term solution.
John, so you're talking about crisis.
Yeah.
I'm always confused about what that means. It sounds like a really bizarre question in this context, but
yeah,
we seem to use crisis quite a lot.
Yeah.
What does crisis mean?
I suppose, to me, it's different for each family, isn't it? And each family will have its own coping mechanisms, or each support team even. You know, if it's a one-to-one support team made up of 3 people and they're out on their own in a supported living environment, they're not going to have the resilience of a residential care home where you've got 25 staff and lots of people working together as a team. So it will depend on each person. I suppose crisis for me is that this situation is no longer sustainable as it is.
So in terms of the use of medication with crisis situations,
yeah,
it's to stop the crisis,
yeah,
in a reactive sense as quick as possible so we can then build the foundations.
Yeah. And the goal for any reactive intervention, isn't it, is to bring the episode to a rapid and safe end. Yeah, it is like that. I suppose just to highlight some of the impacts of behaviour, because challenging behaviour is different for all of us. I'm sure you all know this. What's challenging for me may not be challenging for you, and so on. And it's a term that is a very fuzzy term. It doesn't really tell us anything about what's actually happening. But some of the impacts of living with challenging behaviour we can forget about and we can't see all the time. But thinking about what it must be like to live with some of these things, and it must be really difficult for the families, all the support teams. The people we employ, they don't get paid enough to come to work and get beaten up, have broken bones, bleeding noses, bruises. So repeated injury to family and support, repeated self-injury, and that can be heartbreaking if you're seeing your loved one smashing their head off the table, causing themselves injuries. We're supporting an 11-year-old boy at the moment, and we haven't figured out why, but he is just banging his head off everything, and he's coming up with huge bruises on his head. It's heartbreaking, as well as very frightening about what injuries he's going to cause himself. He could be doing some neurological damage that we can't see. Repeated damage to property. I was at someone's house yesterday that we support, and he'd managed to break a patio door off, causing £2,000 worth of damage. And it's like the staff felt that they couldn't intervene to stop him because they would have escalated his behaviour further. So they had to watch him do £2,000 worth of damage, and who's going to cover that bill? A reduction in coping strategies. If you're repeatedly facing challenging situation after challenging situation, you don't get to recover. Your coping mechanisms go. You end up doing things that are counterproductive, shouting, arguing, being short with the person, not giving the person quality time, giving them attention, reluctance to do positive things with the person because of fear. We find that a lot. We've taken on people who haven't been out for years because their support team are worried if they go out what's going to happen, so it's easier to keep them at home and to manage them there. Not seeing that actually keeping them at home is actually making the situation worse, and it's going to lead to further problems. Anger and frustration. And life becomes about the challenging behaviour. There can't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. A young lady we support called Chloe, before we started supporting her, she was 3 to 1 then. She's still 3 to 1 now, but when we took on her support, the staff were all wearing protective sleeves because she bites, and they new staff were coming on board, and the staff were going, look at this scar I've got from her, look at this scar I've got from her. Did you hear about the staff that she paralysed their arm because she bit them and damaged her nerve endings? Staff don't stay long when they hear that kind of story. They come on and all they see is this monster that they're supporting, and they can't move beyond that. So with her, we had to look at how we get the staff to see a positive image of her first. We took videos of her playing football and typing and telling stories and singing songs, and we made that the first thing that staff see. We removed the protective sleeves, and it was like the staff were going on shift and they were kind of ready in protective stance at all times. We go, just do things with it, get out of this cycle. But it just can be a self-maintaining cycle if it continues. And what must it be like for the person having the medication? So we know from our positive sport philosophy, challenge behaviour is happening for a reason. People don't do things for no reason, or we're lazy as human beings. We wouldn't do things if we weren't getting something from it. They're being silenced instead of listened to. We're taking away their voice. We're medicating them and silencing them. They're being restricted, sedated, and having things important to you removed. So we're very good at creating very sparse environments when people are challenging, and making sure that there's no pictures on the wall, there's no things around that can be thrown, and it just becomes a very plain and dull life. Have you experienced that for people? Is this seeming familiar to you?
The thing I find most worrying is when someone finds it difficult to see their family, so they say, oh, well, don't come. That's me. I find it difficult to see my family.
You kind of, as well, I think back to the days of the institutions, and I remember our nearest institution was Tatchbury Mounds in Southampton, and there's stories there of families dumping disabled babies on the doorstep, and so some of the older people we work with have got no family, but this is the 21st century now. Attitudes have changed, and family is crucial. People don't have a lot in their lives already, and the more it gets reduced, the less things they've got. So yeah, we've really got to be careful, and we've got to protect and promote what they've got in their lives.
We find that we work in children's services, and we find sometimes schools want to medicalise behaviour.
Yeah.
And then they want medication,
Yeah.
and we're saying, but what's that actually going to do? What's it going to solve?
Yeah.
And we also find that if a child's on medication and getting a lot of support, it's the people who are doing the support that don't want the medication to be reduced.
Yes.
And you get into a vicious cycle.
You do.
And it comes, well, who's responsible, and it all gets very, very complicated.
Yeah. The 11-year-old boy we're talking about, he's already on risperidone, and you're thinking at 11 years old, putting chemicals like that into his body, it's frightening. But it's what they need now to calm it down. How we're monitoring it and looking to reduce it in the long run.
How we're reducing it in the long run. Yes, I've just had a referral for a young person who's 6 and on risperidone.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and those coming in with the 6, coming in with positive behavioural support, quality of life, and the parents going in, but they're calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're just sedated.
Yeah.
What's their life?
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes there's quite a lot of value, I think, to people. There's quite a lot to gain, if you like, by trying to medicalise it, because you absolve yourself from needing to do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sort of a label that sometimes people feel comfortable placing.
It is.
Then they don't have to mobilise other supports or feel that things need to change.
It's that comfort, that reassurance. It must be right, because the doctor said there's something
and it
wrong
resides
with
within the
doctors
person's
give
issues rather
Yeah.
than anything to do with
Yeah, they're coping
That's
strategies.
the
Yeah. We're all grown ups. We know that there will be medical issues. There'll be biological factors that implement on it as well, and that will impact with the environment. And if we're just giving medication, we're only looking at the medical intervention. So how are we doing the rest of it as well? We need a multi-component intervention.
So how do you get around this whole medication? Because I can speak from 2 experiences. I work in supported living with people that are on medication. I've also got a child who's got a condition, and they've tried to put her on. She's 19 now. They tried to put her on medication when she was 7, and through her whole life I've refused it. She's not taking any medication. Yes, it was 10 times harder, but she's managed to get herself into university now. She's going to university. She's living independently. But when I'm at work, I see the same sort of problems where medication's been introduced to them as a way to control them or control their life, when I don't actually think that it needs to be given.
No.
But sometimes when we go to the reviews, I feel like I'm being pushed into a corner as, no, go away, the medicine needs to be given, sort of thing.
Okay.
I've challenged medication a lot.
I see it as medication is a restrictive intervention. It should have the same assessment as if you're going to use physical interventions like restraint. So if you're doing it, it should be subject to a best interest decision, and you should have to show that you've considered other options, and you've weighed up the pros and cons of this option and decided that this option is in the person's best interest.
I found that a lot of the best interests are not directly to the individual. Their family have always got to have something. It's almost like the best interest falls on how it's going to affect other people.
Is that the next slide?
It's also, Jonathan, isn't it about, it's how you monitor that medication, because we've all probably had medication at some point in our lives. We don't sail through our lives without any use of medication, so that's not a real scenario. But we actually record on the mark sheet, but we actually record which individual, like a restricted physical intervention, their PRN, and what other medications they're on, and keep a track of that to see if, I actually looked once and there was somebody who'd had 31, that's 1 a day, every day, for a month. And and so we're picking up on that stuff now, which we never used to do. So it's about the individual, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's about the reviews and the management of it.
I
think sometimes staff give PRN as well to make themselves feel safe.
Yeah.
As in,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you know, to the staff and
Yeah, think of the reinforcement.
PRN, I know that's how all PRN do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give, the person's challenging, I give the PRN medication, the challenge goes away. I have a good shift. Why would you not do that? It's very reinforcing for the staff, isn't it, to follow that routine. It means an easy life, and we're lazy. We want easy lives.
See, a lack of understanding sometimes as well, especially what PRN medications or any kind of sort of psychotherapy medication actually does. I worked with a team that was giving lorazepam for an ear infection as opposed to a paracetamol sort of thing. There was just no thinking.
Because it will stop the agitation they've got with the infection, but it's
and
not
understand it,
Yeah.
I think there needs to be some responsibility. I think with psychiatrists as well. And you know, I've worked with a really good psychiatrist before, as a behaviour practitioner. So we work together. We use a biopsychosocial model where I would implement interventions, and he would then go, right, it's now time to start reducing that. And we worked together. And I think that's quite rare. That that psychiatrists. I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but
there are some brilliant psychiatrists out there. There are some that aren't so brilliant. It does depend on who you've got. But I think if they're using it every day, is it PRN?
No, of course it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. And we have to look at his regular medication as well. Yeah. But unless we're monitoring that can go unforeseen, because for different staff coming on duty and coming on.
Definitely.
I think there's another complexity around it. That also, some people support who have learned to change behaviour also have mental health conditions and mental health issues. And I really struggle as a manager of service with that blur. Definitely. Because you are right, we view all medication that we give in the context of to sedate them a little bit because their behaviours are at a point that place themselves against the policy in there. We give that completely right, and we call that restrictive intervention. Another lady that we give who has got an ultra rapid bipolar affective disorder, and we don't class that as a restrictive intervention in the same way because we're viewing it very differently. That's a treatment. For someone who is in. Does that make sense?
But I suppose if they didn't have a learning disability, would medication be the only treatment that gets them for that?
Absolutely.
They'd be getting cognitive behaviour therapy, they'd be getting other approaches.
I'm sorry, cognitive behavioural therapy with learning disabilities in NHS, there isn't. We don't know.
It's hard to come.
So sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, it's also that for me anyway, another difficulty in that is somebody got a mental health issue because of the years that they've been presenting challenges and not getting their needs met, that they've now got a health condition. So kind of unpicking it really over the years.
Cool. There is no medication to treat challenging behaviour. There isn't. If you look in the BNF, there is no medication in the BNF that treats challenging behaviour. Some of it is used for behaviour, but it's used for its sedative effect. So there isn't a magic pill that cures it. There is something that sedates it. You take that sedation away, the behaviour's still there.
Good size,
I was thinking of getting that on the TV.
But you could bring it to the psychiatrist.
Can I have some fucking The medications are really, really powerful. They're some of the strongest medications that are available, and they've got some really bad side effects. One of them being death, the one at the bottom. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome is a common side effect of a lot of the medications that are used that is fatal for people. We've all got a learning disability. If you're on an antipsychotic medication, it has very dangerous side effects. We know as well, a lot of people we support are very sensitive to medications. I know a lot of people with autism, for example, who are very sensitive to the slightest change in their medication, and it can cause hypersensitivities. Sedation, the obvious one, we getting that balance right. Are they over sedated and they're able to carry on in their daily tasks till they get just enough sedation so as the behaviour goes away. Changes in appetite is a big one. Sometimes people put off food, sometimes people eat more and gain a lot of weight when they're on them. The extrapyramidal side effects, that's things like the tardive dyskinesia and the Parkinsonian side effects where people get tremors and drooling and smacking of the lips sort of things. And dependency and addiction, mainly thinking here of the diazepams and that type of drugs. If they're used too much, then people become dependent and addicted to them. So the decision to put people on isn't made lightly. We wouldn't be doing psychiatrists justice if we said they're just dishing out these pills. They do think very carefully about them, but I suppose we need to all think about, wow, these are some serious medications. What safeguards are being put in place to protect people? How are we checking that the side effects are being monitored and managed? For an unskilled support team, would they pick up on some of those side effects and know that was a side effect? Would they see a tremor as that's just a new autistic behaviour he's developed and things like that? So we've got to watch out. So that's called diagnostic overshadowing, as some of you will know. Will they just overlook the side effects and just put it down to their learning disability? So
there's some really important support needs that people have on medication as well. Support staff generally get taught how we can about them. And something like the diazepams and the lorazepams, the sensory needs change completely, and the way you should support a person changes completely. And even really simple things like eating, with the act of putting something in your mouth, if you're feeling detached from the world and you're doing something like smoking a cigarette or putting food in your mouth, that's really important. And being reminded of where you are in the world, things like that on a daily basis. But there's none of that given in my experience. When someone gets prescribed medication, the support team are told this is the extra that you need to put in to give comfort and direction and things as well. So we think that everything's been okay, but because the behaviour's stopped, we suddenly start neglecting the needs of basic medication. Change. There doesn't seem to be any education.
There isn't. One of my biggest bugbears is human touch. Working in organisations where they've got no touch policies and things like that, you're working with a human being, and if the person's distressed,
that's kind of your first way to get away from medication, isn't it? To provide that comfort and touch. The warmth and you develop rapport and relationship from there.
I went and saw a man with support yesterday, and he was feeling my stubble, stroking my head and giving me a head rub, putting his head up against mine. And if I'd have gone like no touch, then you'd have escalated a problem with a problem. But it's having that contact, that treating him as a human being, and appreciating that we all need contact and human touch. And you're right, basic needs and some of the additional basic needs that come with medication is important to remember.
Jonathan, you may be going to say this as well, but sometimes the side effects of the medication can completely alter the function of the behaviour.
Right, okay.
A couple of occasions I've had people already with functional assessments, we've understood the behaviour quite well, until medication has, particularly around risperidone and changes to appetite, tangible reinforcers were never an issue until the onset of medication.
That reminded me of a man that we assessed in a hospital. So we were actually going to assess a man who'd been admitted to hospital, and he was the scariest man I've ever seen in my life. He was like that wide and that tall, and he'd got scars all down his arm where he'd been biting chunks out of his arm, scars all over his face where he'd been bashing his face to pieces. And he comes up to me, full force, and I felt very intimidated. I was going, and I'm saying to him, what does he want? They told me he wants some Bonjela, and they put some Bonjela on his gun. It wasn't until I read through his notes and found out more about him afterwards and looked up our Macaton. That's the Macaton for sweets. So he'd learnt that's for sweets, and if I do this, people give me sweets. He'd gone to hospital, the hospital staff didn't know that, and he does that, and then he gets Bonjela. So that behaviour now has two functions for him, and he's doing it sometimes to ask for sweets and he's not getting sweets. He's doing it sometimes to ask for Bonjela and he's not getting Bonjela. And we wonder why people are challenging when we're confusing their communication and we're giving them multifunctions for single behaviours, and it's we do create a lot of challenging behaviour. So the STOMP initiative, it's based on the findings of 3 studies. So these 3 studies were part of the original Winterbourne View Concordat. So when Winterbourne View happened, all the people at Department of Health panicked a bit, and they said, right, here is an action plan about what we're all going to do about it, that lots of different organisations signed up to, and one of them was to look into the use of medication for people with learning disabilities. So one of the reports was from Public Health England on prescribing psychotropic drugs to people with learning disabilities and autism by GPs. There was the Winterbourne Medicines Programme. I really hate that. Everything post-Winterbourne was called Winterbourne this, Winterbourne that, and Winterbourne that. Like, can we start calling it something else? I think they have started calling it something else now. And then there was the survey of medications of detained patients with learning disabilities by the CQC. So they're the 3 key reports that have built up to what's now the STOMP initiative. And they found around 35,000 people with learning disabilities at any one time were prescribed psychotropic medication for which they didn't have a diagnosed mental illness for. So that's the, oh my god, people with learning disabilities have been given these drugs and they haven't got a diagnosis for what they're being prescribed it for. It's not that uncommon. To have a medication used for something it's not supposed to isn't that uncommon.
I totally agree with all that, this being said, but I think that for me what really stood out was after this initiative came out, psychiatrists were pulling meds left, right and centre, and yay for trying to reduce them. I didn't have a single person that I was supporting. I was supporting several hundred people, well, in process of supporting I didn't have a single person call back to be reassessed, to look at the diagnostic methods that were used for certain people, and a lot of psychiatrists were saying that they didn't really feel comfortable necessarily giving them a label. And I think that there is a side of this where obviously, we could all sit here and complain about how under-supported mental health is, because it is, but there is an element of this where if there aren't enough psychiatrists to give enough time to really assess what is going on with the mental health of some of the people we're supporting, they're pulling medications that actually, maybe it is the wrong dose, maybe it's not actually, there's that side of it as well, and I think I get really geared up about this because actually, then as I think a big point you're making is, they're pulling these meds and teams are left to support somebody without any extra resources at all, and then it's just the fact that they talk about assessment, and when you talk to a psychiatrist about it, they almost laugh because they're like, well, where am I going to find the time to do full assessments on all these people? Somebody has to,
I'm probably one of the rare people that feels really sorry for psychiatrists.
I think actually they're buggered if they're doing their
They are.
don't.
They're getting pressure from their employers, from government to say stop giving medication to people with learning disabilities. They're faced with a family in front of them saying, we're going to just crack up and collapse if you don't give us something right now to resolve this. We don't know what else to do. There's a shortage of specialist learning disability psychiatrists in the UK, so they're overstretched, it's difficult to recruit to posts when they're vacant. They are in a very, very no-win situation.
And absolutely, I've got so much respect for them. I'm not dissing them, but I think my point is that Stomp came out, loads of meds were pulled, and nothing, that was the solution, and yay, would reduce the meds. I just don't think that was appropriate at all.
No, not at all. No. But lots of medications are used for what the BNF says they shouldn't be used. That isn't at all. Bucomadazolam is a common one. So bucomadazolam is licensed for children with epilepsy. It's not licensed for adults, but we've all probably worked with adults with learning disability who prescribe bucomadazolam. It's not uncommon for it to be used outside of what it's supposed to be for. Lots of medication used for. But you put that as a headline in the Sun, and all of a sudden it's like those evil psychiatrists. They're just chemical crushing everyone with learning disability. Why do people with learning disability get sedated and tucked away? This is more abuse of people with learning disabilities. There may be an element of that in some situations. That I'm not saying that there isn't somebody out there where they've just been given a load of medication and they've been neglected the rest of their needs. But it's not telling the whole story. It's a good headline, really.
They also have ridiculous caseloads, don't they? Shocking when you look at them and see how can you keep track of those people?
So when they looked at how much medication was being given to people and they decided to stop it, did they also look at how much input was needed to account for that action?
No.
I'm from Sussex, and the home that I work in, we had a psychiatrist who came in and implemented the new guidelines, and we had 50% of our residents had their medication changed and reduced with no other input at all, and that created a crisis for the whole home. And we couldn't get psychology and we couldn't get any other input to balance that out.
And sadly, it's not just medication where it's happening. We're working with a lady at the moment who's had 2-to-1 support for the last 18 months. We've been supporting her, and now they've decided she just needs one person's support, and she's not coping with one person, and the team now, she hasn't got anyone that wants to work with her. We're losing staff left, right and centre, and it gets withdrawn, things just keep getting withdrawn, and nothing about what's going to happen when it gets withdrawn. So medication, support, services, it's a very sad time. It's not great at the moment. They found that more than half of people in hospital were on an antipsychotic medication, and they didn't have a mental illness diagnosis. I was working for CQC when they were doing this report, and it was looking at all the SOAD assessments that had been done. And the CQC were petrified about publishing this report because it looked like things were in a really bad situation. So if you read half of people in hospital are on antipsychotic medication and they have no psychotic diagnosis, why didn't CQC pick upon this before? What's going on? It's because this is legitimate practice. It's okay to do this.
Is it half of people with learning disabilities or half of people in general?
This was just people with learning disabilities that they looked at for this. Yeah. 24% of people in hospitals had more than one psychotropic medication, which rose to 57% if you were looking at people who had an antipsychotic medication and a PRN as well. So we know that's not uncommon. We do know that I've seen situations where there is bad practice where they try one antipsychotic medication, that doesn't work, so let's add another one, and that doesn't work, so let's add another one, and let's add another one. It does happen. Hopefully we can be there advocating for that not to happen, but it does. And of the 57%, 40% of them were prescribed 5 or more medications. They weren't all antipsychotic medications, but they all had at least 5 medications that they were on. So we see people taking lots of different, and when you're looking at taking different medications, you've got to think of their interactions with each other and how that all works as well. So some very complex polypharmacy going on. The response from Dominic Slowey when the Stomp Initiative came out, he said these medicines can be helpful when used appropriately and kept under review. And it's really important we remember that. But the prevalence and the lack of review or challenge that these reports have highlighted is completely unacceptable. And we decided to take action to protect this group of patients from over-medication. So medication is okay, we just need to make sure there are safeguards in place that it's done safe.
Is there something that, so we get the big snappy headlines around the Stop campaign, and I probably share your view in that I agree with it, however, it's not that simple. Yeah. Actually, do we need to campaign to, how do you review it? Because actually that seems to be the fundamental problem. Nobody in the room saying we should never medicate people, because actually there shouldn't be. But actually, it seems that once something's been prescribed, that's where things seem to go wrong for people, because because I've sat as part of clinics with psychiatrists and support staff will come, and you ask questions like, how was Jonathan doing the last 2 weeks? Holiday for 2 weeks. And it's not that person's fault, but actually you're sitting in a clinic situation, you can only base your decisions based on the information you're given, and very often the information that's been given is not helpful to review. So
you get an
is that what we need
agent
to campaign about? Do we need to do a campaign about how do you review?
What does a good review look like? Yeah. So again, thinking of, we're all here to celebrate positive behaviour support. Positive behaviour support, you say what you want to see, not what you don't want to see. So what does a good review look like? Not stop giving people medication.
There are some guidelines on that, because there's the NICE, the Royal Psychiatry College has brought out some, and then the Stomp Initiative also have some. So there are those tools out there, but I think it's about taking it from the literature into practice. So those tools are really, really useful. They're just not being used in the mainstream.
I think for example, the original one from that came out in 2007, and I seen the Stomp campaign when it came out, and I went, I've already got that.
Yeah, I remember a campaign on this from the University of Birmingham in 1997 or something like that. It was,
I've been working with a children's psychiatrist who really does all this and insists on it, and is a complete thorn in the side of managers everywhere. And she's got such a bad reputation as a troublemaker and difficult to work with, because she insists that we do the environmental change first, that there's a PBS plan in place to support it, and that you record the results of her medication, and that's brought to the review, and people hate it.
I suppose it's been, I know certainly some of the they've been involved in, our psychiatrists just, they don't have time to do, which I'm not saying that that's right either, but they don't even know what the term PBS means, they don't know how it functions, they're there in the clinical.
She used to make other people do it, which is why she was hated.
back to the point we made earlier, we do get situations where they say, well, it's not medical, it's behavioural, so you have that approach, or it's behavioural, it's just a person that's helped sort the situation out. There's no hierarchy of badness or restrictiveness. It needs to be very person-centred. So when we're looking at what's the least restrictive intervention, you can't say, well, medication is more restrictive than physical interventions, isn't it? It's different for every person. I've put up some different seclusions there. We're supporting a man at the moment who his staff feel that when he gets challenging, locking him in his home is the least restrictive approach because they don't have to then put their hands on him. And
it sounds awful, but it is the least restrictive.
So
it can be the least restrictive,
They think it's the least restrictive. What they don't know is his history, and they don't know what it means to him. And he's got experience of seclusion rooms when he was a child. It's very traumatic for him. So locking him in his room is bad. What we see as well is when he gets locked in his room, his behaviour gets a lot worse before he gets better. He goes through what we call an extinction burst, so he really escalates and gets really, really, really bad before it calms down. If they sit with him and hold him, he actually finds reassurance in the physical touch and being held, and it calms down very, very quickly, very safely without that big spike in escalation. So the decision that the team are doing at the moment is based on what's best for the team and not what's best for him, and it's different for every person. Some people with autism don't like being touched, so physical interventions won't be good for them, and medication might be the least restrictive intervention to use. Other people might have such a bad reaction to medication that holding them is the best intervention to use. It's really person-centred. You can't say, well, medication's up here, physical intervention's up here, locking him in is here. It doesn't work like that. Each person is different for each person. What is most restrictive for one person is different to what's most restrictive for another. So what to do if a person is prescribed psychotropic medication? Firstly, it's okay, don't panic. If the person you support is on some type of psychotropic medication, don't panic about it, it's alright. They've probably been prescribed for a reason. Have faith, they've probably had a good psychiatry review, that it's being used well. But look at how it's being reviewed and monitored. Check the medication isn't the only answer, that they haven't said, well, we're giving him pills for that now, so that's the problem sorted. We can put our feet up and say job done, because it isn't. You've got to think about more. Is the medication in the person's best interest or in their support's best interest? So consider that balance. Whose best interest is the medication in? Is there a PBS plan from a competent practitioner with a functional assessment? So if the person hasn't had a functional assessment, don't get one. It can be hard because you've already entered a new variable. You've changed the medication, you'll have changed the behaviour, you'll have changed the dynamics, but still it's worth trying to get that functional assessment done and looking at, can we identify the functional behaviours and are we mixing the function? Is it being reviewed, as we said? Are there plans to stop or reduce it, or is the medication forever? Have people decided this is their medication now and that's that? Or is there plans to look at withdrawal? Consider the team's or the family's wider coping strategies. So how are we going to help the team or the family cope? Because even on medication, you're going to have bad times still. How are you going to help the family cope too? And monitor for side effects.
I think something else which I think we sometimes miss out is actually asking the person how they feel after they've started the medication as well, and for people to really understand what those side effects are and to let that person know what the side effects are. I think I think sometimes that's missed. So if we take medication, after a week we might decide, actually this isn't right for me, so we'll stop taking it. So if we give people where we can those kind of options.
I've also seen some really good stuff about telling people learn to it's about medication you're actually taking when you start it. And we've used those with people we've used it with people who really struggle to understand information that's given to them and side benefits, and sitting down and saying, you're taking this tablet, this is its name, this is what it's going to help you do. Just trying a little bearing on helping them feel
definitely. And we support a man who's very, very able and very articulate. I was hoping he'd be here today, but he couldn't make it. And he will tell his team when he wants his PRN medication. Part of it wonders, is it a placebo effect? Is he getting it and then he's feeling, well, I've had my medication, now I calm down. But for him it works. And when he's asking for it, he doesn't get it, he gets more agitated. So he's thinking, what does the medication mean to that person? How is it affecting them?
I think also considering the side effects of withdrawal. So a person might have been on medication for 10 years, for example. then we're either reducing or removing right away. And you see an increase in challenging behaviour. And like you said earlier, people can be very sensitive to the medication they're on. That's not saying in 3 months' time that behaviour is going to stay at that level. But I think people sometimes get to that crisis point and they're like, I'm too scared to withdraw this medication because we tried it before. We saw an increase, and I don't know if anyone takes antihistamines themselves, like I take them all through summer, and it's when I come off them, I feel like a little bit dizzy. So similarly for especially guys that we support who are non-verbal and aren't able to communicate that, I think sometimes when we look at the data it's misleading us of why those behaviours are happening, and it's not because withdrawing the medication isn't in their best interest in the long term, but it's how we support them with the side effects of that withdrawal. And I don't often think that the withdrawal side effects are taken into consideration that much, especially when we have sort of MDT meetings.
Yeah, definitely. So with any intervention we try, isn't it, we need to think about, is there going to be a change in behaviours, and are the family ready to escape for it? And there can be some really bad withdrawal side effects if it's removed too quickly, and if it's done wrong. Even if it's done right, they can still withdraw.
And I think that sometimes that's how, if we prepare support staff to expect something out of that change, then we're building resilience in that team, rather than them going, where did that come from?
We told you so.
You haven't done wrong. Be told that you've not done anything wrong just because they've had a challenging episode doesn't mean you've done a bad job. It means that you've had a bad time today. Let's learn from it. Let's move forward, and make sure you're resilience is very important. So, can medication be part of a PBS plan? Put simply, yes. A PBS plan is a multi-elemental plan that looks at lots of different things, and medication can definitely be part of that. It can be used as a setting event, so it could be what helps to create the situations, putting good interventions in place. It can help the person physically be ready, getting their arousal levels right for interaction and for learning and for development. It can be a setting event to help the family to put support in place and to build coping skills for themselves as well. PRN medication can be used as an active or reactive intervention. If you see someone who's getting edgy, you can use PRN medication. If someone has had an incident, using PRN medication can stop that incident happening again in a short space of time, a relapse or a secondary intervention. We do know for some people using PRN medication when they're mid-incident, first of all they're going to say yes to giving them medication when they're in the middle of trying to punch you in the head. And sometimes their adrenaline levels can be too high and they'll just work off the side effects. So there can be points where it isn't effective. So it is about knowing the person, knowing how aroused they are and knowing when to use it. But it can be a reactive strategy for both the active and reactive stages as well. So, but I thought I'd finished them. I've done 15, I'm sure I've gone for more than 15 slides. Medication is not the answer on its own, so that is the big takeaway message, isn't it? It's if someone is on medication, make sure that isn't the only thing that's happening for them. PBS is a multi-elemental approach which medications can be part of, and just because the behaviour is stopped doesn't mean its job done. We're not only looking at challenging behaviour when we're looking at behaviour, we're looking at the behaviours we want to see as well, and how we're helping people to develop skills. So it's thinking about how are we helping this person to move on from what's happened. And I think that is... Oh no! Just a warning about the mob culture that there seems to be at the moment. I think Twitter in particular, it can make you feel like everyone's saying this on Twitter, so this must be what everyone thinks. It's what a lot of people are saying on Twitter and on your timeline. It's not necessarily what everyone thinks. So to mention this more than Rob Raw, official 1% of people take away the voices of fauna. Sounds a little bit like Brexit, doesn't it? I'm not declaring affiliation either way. But yeah, just because people are saying medication is bad doesn't mean we have to get rid of all medication. Just because people are saying hospice is bad doesn't mean we have to get rid of all hospitals. We need to be sensible about things and we need to find what's right. And if we are saying something's bad and it needs to be replaced, then what are we replacing it with?
It's called not throwing the baby out with the bath.
It is, definitely, yeah. And that's what we're about with positive behaviour support. We're about adding things, we're not about taking things away. If we're taking things away, what are we replacing them with? If we're saying to families you can't have medication, you can't go to hospital, you can't have respite, what is there instead? So really.
So the problem also with medication is like alternative therapy are not considered.
Yeah.
For example, I know if I was sick, I will go to see an homeopath before seeing a GP.
Yeah.
That's my personal choice, but there is no this option for people with a disability. They don't consider that other complementary therapies.
Yeah, they don't.
Because it's not mainstream enough.
No.
So it's,
No. And things get demonised very quickly and made to be evil. That is the